Good morning. I'm Chaplain John Rollison with the Homestead Reserve Base Chapel. Thank you so much for joining us for day 17 of our Advent devotional series from Crew Ministry. Today's lesson starts with a reading from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14, verses 7 through 11. When he noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a more distinguished person than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come to you and say, "Give this person your seat." Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, "Friend, move up to a better place." Then you will be honored in the presence of all the guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now from the Gospel of John, chapter 13, verses 3 and 5. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, began to wash the disciples' feet. I would encourage you sometime today to read the Gospel of Luke chapter 14, and if you continue reading one chapter a day, every day up through Christmas Eve, you'll have read the entire Gospel of Luke before Christmas. Now in the passage we just read in Luke 14, Jesus watched those invited to a house of a prominent Pharisee compete for the most impressive seats at the table. All of them wanted to be first. It's possible that they may have believed they actually deserved the best seat in the house. And instead of praising them for seeking their own interests, Jesus told them a story painting a picture of glory and humility. Jesus consistently proclaimed a kingdom much different than the one that those waiting on the Messiah expected, one where, according to Matthew 20, verse 16, the last will be first, and the first will be last. From his birth in a manger to his death on a cross, Jesus demonstrated what we might call his inverted kingdom. At his Last Supper, Jesus chose not to be served, but to serve. We can read about that in Matthew 20, 28, as well as Mark chapter 10, verse 45. And at that Last Supper, he washed the feet of each disciple, even Judas, who would eventually betray him. In both his words and his actions, Jesus called his disciples to live out and to enjoy the benefits of his upside-down kingdom, and he calls you today to do the same thing. I pray this brought you hope and encouragement this morning. And until tomorrow, I'm Chaplain John Rollison with the Homestead Reserve Base Chapel.